Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to unpack exactly how product managers can confidently say no to feature requests without totally destroying stakeholder trust. If you've ever felt that crushing pressure of a looming feature demand that you just know isn't right for the product, well, you are definitely in the right place. Okay, let's just dive right into our agenda. We're going to cover the dilemma, why we struggle, the framework, real scripts, and finally, building an evidence architecture.
Section 1. The Product Manager's Dilemma. So picture this. You're sitting in a meeting room, or, staring at a Zoom screen. A senior stakeholder walks in, and they are incredibly excited about this brand new feature idea. They've been chewing on it for days, and let's be honest, they've probably already promised it to a massive customer.
They spend 10 solid minutes describing the whole shebang, and then they just look at you, fully expecting a green light. Now, the tension in that room, it's literally palpable. Because as they're talking, you know with near absolute certainty that it's the wrong thing to build right now. And honestly, what happens next in this exact moment tells you more about a PM's true ability than any roadmap they've ever put together.
Section 2. Why we struggle saying no.
So why is no the absolute hardest word in product management? Why do we constantly default to saying, oh, let me just add it to the backlog instead of giving a flat refusal? Well, it's because PMs sit at this incredibly chaotic intersection of competing demands. Engineering wants technical clarity, design wants a beautiful user flow, sales wants literally whatever closes the deal this quarter, and execs, they want big strategic moves. You are the only one with a full picture. But here's the kicker. You don't have any formal authority over any of these people. You can't just override a VP or tell a huge customer they're wrong without some serious political fallout.
Here's a crucial point to remember. PMs often confuse the specific request with the actual underlying need. Let's say sales asks for a CSV export because a prospect demanded it. But the actual need, the real job to be done, is data portability, right? There might be 5 completely different ways to solve data portability, and a CSV export is just one of them. If you only evaluate the CSV export, you've already lost the frame. Saying no to a specific solution is dramatically easier than saying no to the underlying need.
But because of all that intense pressure, PMs often just optimize for short-term harmony. They defer the friction. They smile and say, sure, I'll add it to the backlog. But listen, deferred friction compounds. A backlog completely stuffed with half promises that nobody actually intends to build, it becomes a massive trust destruction machine. Eventually, people figure out that added to the backlog really just means gone forever. And you know what happens? They just stop bringing you their real problems.
Section 3. The Evidence-Based No Framework.
We clearly need a better approach, right? A way to say no, but actually leave the relationship fully intact. Let's walk through a 4-step framework to reframe these conversations from a flat refusal to an objective, healthy discussion about trade-offs. Step 1 is to name the need, not the feature. Basically reflect back what you just heard, but at the level of the underlying problem. It signals you are truly listening, and it completely shifts the conversation from, will you build this, to how should we solve this?
Moving to step 2, you practice honest epistematics. This is such a fantastic concept. It basically means inviting the stakeholder into your reasoning by being super clear about what evidence you actually have and, crucially, what you don't have. You might say something like, hey, we have proxy evidence from support tickets that this matters, but we lack observational evidence because we haven't actually watched customers fail at this task yet. It's not hedging, it's just being totally transparent. And honestly, it's so much harder to argue with than just saying, yeah, I don't think this is a priority.
Now for step 3. This is where you rank the request against your active bets and frame the trade-off with hard, cold data. For example, you might show them that your current number 1 priority is the activation flow, where you're seeing a massive 38% drop-off. You calmly explain that if you build their feature first, sure, you might close a new deal, but you'll lose all those cohorts who are actively paying to acquire right now. This is the exact frame executives actually respond to. It's a trade-off, not a refusal. You're simply explaining the queue ordering. Finally, step 4. This gives the stakeholder agency by offering the smallest possible next step that could actually change your mind. You tell them, look, if you genuinely believe this is urgent, the thing that would change my view is doing 2 or 3 customer calls. If we learn that workarounds are literally causing churn, well, that changes the whole calculus. Doing this turns a hard, defensive no into a collaborative not yet unless. It positions you as an objective, evidence-based decision-maker rather than just a stubborn gatekeeper. Section 4. Scripts for real conversations. Let's see how all of this builds into practical application with some specific, real-world scripts you can actually use when the pressure is really on. First up, the classic sales-driven request. When sales is pushing incredibly hard for a feature just to close a specific, lucrative deal, you need to gracefully de-escalate the situation while still showing you care about revenue.
Using our framework, you start by validating the deal. I hear you, and I get that this would help close the Acme account. Then, you explicitly name the engineering trade-off that would affect existing customers. Something like, the trade-off here is X weeks of engineering time currently locked into our top priority, which affects N number of existing customers. And finally, the action step. Ask them to quantify the annual recurring revenue impact so you can take it to the prioritization conversation with the right data. Boom! You've just put the ball right back in their court to build the business case.
Next up is the executive idea. Now, handling an executive's idea definitely requires some tact. You obviously can't just dismiss the CEO out of hand. You need to gently shift the focus towards validating patterns rather than just instantly reacting to one very loud voice from the top.
Hey, this is super interesting. I think there's really something here. Then guide them straight to the data. You know, if this is a real pattern, it should absolutely already be showing up in our signal data. Ask for a week to pull that evidence to see if it's actually a widespread pattern across the whole user base, or if it was just an isolated conversation they happened to have at a dinner party. You're treating their idea with total respect, but you're submitting it to the exact same rigorous process as everything else.
Section 5. Building an evidence architecture. Now, to pull all of this off successfully when you're under pressure, you absolutely need the right data ready to go. Because having the framework is great and all, but having the data is what actually makes it work in reality. Here is the golden rule you need to remember. Opinion loses to seniority every single time. Organized evidence wins. The PMs who say no most effectively, they aren't just naturally brave or confident people. They simply have a system where evidence is organized by decision. They don't have to rely on just their gut opinion. They might know intuitively that a feature isn't right, but much more importantly, they can point straight to the receipts. Practically, this means meticulously logging every customer conversation, tagging every single churn reason, and recording every experiment result. If you use a connected graph workspace, something like Specky, for example, you aren't desperately digging through 10 separate documents that nobody even opens anymore. Because of the consistent work you put in logging interviews and experiments over days and weeks, when a stakeholder suddenly walks in, you can query your system and pull hard, undeniable evidence in like 30 seconds, not 3 days.
And honestly, this is becoming more vital every single day. As AI makes it unbelievably cheap and fast for stakeholders to just generate their own product mockups and demand quick builds, the sheer volume of feature requests is only going to skyrocket. So your ability to evaluate these requests quickly, honestly, and out in the open, with highly visible evidence that everyone in the room can see, that becomes your most valuable superpower. It's the one PM skill that reliably compounds over time.
So I'm going to leave you with this final thought to chew on. The feature requests, they're never, ever going to stop coming. So the next time a stakeholder walks into a room and passionately demands a new feature, what are you going to do? Will you hide behind the slow, quiet death of the backlog? Or will you use organized evidence and sharp judgment to confidently guide the way? The choice, and ultimately the trust of your entire team, is entirely up to you.